Well, hello again, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the Nautilus Dry Docks, and we have another project to share with you. This is an American submarine rendered in 1/72nd scale, the U.S. Virginia class. Let's take a look. So this particular build was based off of the superb 3D files offered from Otto from the Czech Republic that I offer here at the Nautilus Dry Docks. These files are a little bit different than the one that Otto offers though, because he does a vertical hull split where you remove the front and rear of the boat. I took those files, modified them, and made a horizontal split. I want to show you how that looks, but first let's take a quick overview of the completed boat. So let's start at the front here. This particular set of files is based off of the Block 3 configuration, which you can see the vertical missile tubes in the bow of the boat. This one also had the optional resin tower upgrade, which really adds a lot of beautiful detail to it. The kit comes with a lot of really phenomenal photo etch, and you can see all of those details in areas like there and there and there, all down the back of the boat. So these are add-ons that are glued onto the 3D printed hull. Something else that we added that is not part of the actual file system was this scale ASDS sealed delivery vehicle. And this is held on magnetically with some magnets there. So this just clips right on. This is ballasted completely neutrally, so it doesn't affect the submerged trim of the boat. Although when surfaced, this would drop the stern just a hair, just a little bit. Going into the back, you can see the hull hole down here. And we did it this way just to make it really easy so that you don't need any tools. Although you can, if your fingers are wet, use a Phillips head screwdriver and get that off. A couple of other things of note, you've got the propulsor here, and there's a scale impeller inside there as well. It works really well. And then the last thing is this removable rudder extension. So these are the stock rudders that you can see right there. It's fairly small. And then this is an extension that snaps on magnetically that basically triples the surface area of that rudder. Taking a look at how this thing is controlled, this is an OTW 3.5-inch dive module. Has a nice beefy motor in it, bellow seals for all of the linkages. This seal is a compression style, so if you ever find this leaking, what you can do is loosen this interior nut, tighten down the exterior one, and then retighten the interior one, and that increases the compression against the shaft. We have a 900 megahertz radio receiver in there with twin 900 megahertz antennas oriented perpendicular to one another. Automatic pitch controller is in there. And then underneath you can see the the electronic speed controller for the main drive motor. This is a pump-based ballast system, so you can see the central ballast tank is quite large. It's about 12 inches in overall length. We were running into a lot of issues with the OTW dive controller, and so we elected to revert this back to a much more reliable and simple system that just uses an electronic speed controller to activate the pump. And the other thing that we did to eliminate the tendency of these systems to slosh is add these vents in the top that allows all of the trapped air to be removed. So now, as opposed to only having about 2/3 of the ballast capacity, we have 100% of this ballast tank being utilized and no trapped air. So there's no propensity for this to shift its center of buoyancy with a trapped air bubble in here. Moving to the forward section, you can see the solenoid valve that pinches off pressure to the ballast tank, although this is much less required now that we've gone to a low pressure pump system. You've got your main geared pump right here. This is just basically a windshield washer pump. and our remote on-off switch in here. And then underneath you can see the electronic speed controller that controls the pump. The forward servo for the forward dive planes is actually a linear servo, and that was done just to fit a little nicer in the forward section of the watertight cylinder. Control is handled through this FrSky X14 twin 900 megahertz radio system. 900 megahertz is perfect for RC submarines. After a lot of trials and testing, I've deduced that it's just as fun as using the old low frequency radios with exponentially more flexibility in terms of programming and features. So this one has that particular feature, and you can see the remote on-off fobs right here as well. Power for the boat comes from a lithium ferrous phosphate life battery, 12.8 volts, 6 amp hours, which is in a nice tidy package, and this is incredibly light as well. I'm kind of like these batteries. They're growing on me. It's about time we open this up. Showed you inside the hull. Throw the cylinder in, run it through its paces, let you see how it works. Access to the hull, as I showed you earlier, is very easy. We just undo our retaining bolts in the back. I'm going to take this off just because I don't want it to fall off at all. This has some pins and it's a tight fit, so I'm just going to carefully pry it up and then pull it back, and now we're released. So up in the top here you can see the air hose that runs up into this mast. So this is the intake and output for the ballast tank air. Then you see some flotation foam up in here as well. I'll just set this aside. And I also want to note that sail is completely removable for storage and transport as well. Taking a look inside, since we're at the front here, we can see our magnetic connector for our forward dive planes. We've got our battery cradle in here, internal bulkheads for mounting the watertight cylinder, some additional flotation foam, some ballast weights, and then going into the back we can see the linkages for our rudder and for our dive planes, and then our main drive shaft. Very simple and straightforward, and it gets just as easy to get everything set up for the pond. We'll grab our battery, drop it in back first, and there's a little retaining clip right here. You just make sure that it goes past there, fits flush under the surfaced water line, which is definitely what you want. I'm going to keep that waterproof connector just off to the side, and we're going to grab our watertight cylinder. Two things that you need to pay attention to when you're installing this is the alignment of the dog bone, which is going to slip into the dog bone connector, and the knurled nuts. So you just want to make sure this is rotated so that it will line up to the holes in that rear bulkhead. There you go. There. And you'll see the magnetic linkages just locked right in place automatically. Up in the front here, you got your forward cradle, and these knurled nuts just sit nicely right in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-place my stainless bolt into the retaining clip. That goes in there, and we're just going to grab a 5/32 Allen wrench and tighten it down. Now it is set up for 2, but you absolutely don't need 2. 1 is perfectly fine. 2 is overkill, but it's set up for that anyway. Last thing you need to do is connect to your magnetic connector for your forward dive planes. And we're going to take our waterproof connector, press it together, tighten it down, and tuck our cables out of the way so they're not going to get tangled up in our upper hull. What you can do at this point is grab your air hose, connect it to the ballast tank. It just slips on, just like that. Now that we got all of this together, what you're going to want to do is go through your bench test scenario. And in order to do that, we're going to turn our radio on and power up the boat. We now have rudder control. We have stern plane override. And that was rudder on the right stick and stern plane override here. The reason I have this on a slider is that when you're operating the boat, you can actually set these stern planes at an angle of attack that keeps the boat at perfect periscope depth. So it's on an automatic pitch controller as well. You can see those planes moving in conjunction with the pitch of the boat. We got our throttle in forward and reverse. And then the only other function up in the front there is our forward dive planes. And of course our ballast system. So the forward planes are on this stick as well. So you've got rudder and then depth control. And then ballast is on the main switch. So to dive, you hit down. And then to surface, you go up. That's about it. It doesn't get any easier than that. The only other thing that I want to point out at this point is that the radio comes with inbuilt fail-safe functionality. I'm going to demonstrate that to you right now. We're going to pretend that we're driving the boat. The throttle is going right now. We're driving around. Let's say we're at periscope depth. And for whatever reason, let's say the boat, we lose sight of it underneath the surface of the water. If it ends up going so far as to lose signal, you can fake that by turning the radio off. The ballast tank is kicking in, planes to full rise, throttle stops, rudder amidships. I'm going to power the radio back up. And we're right back as though nothing happened. So if there's a momentary glitch, the boat will just come back up again, regain the signal, and you've got control of the boat again. Also, the neat thing about this is part of the system includes a read back to the transmitter on signal strength. So right now we're at, they call it 100 decibels, but it's basically 100%. The further away you get, the lower that's going to be, but you can always just keep an eye on it. And you'll be able to tell your relative signal strength or communication strength with the boat. If it gets too low, you can bring it back in. And you can also up the transmission strength in this. So right now, I believe it's operating at 250 milliwatts. It'll go up to a full watt of broadcast power, which is pretty cool. Bench test is successful. Now all you need to do, grab your boat, the upper hull of your boat, I should say. And I'm going to make sure I tuck the air hose down underneath these little bulkheads and keep them out of the way. Pin in the front goes into place, just like that. And then you can just give it a little wiggle. Everything is down. Retaining bolts goes in. ASDS goes on. You're ready for the pond now. You can turn it off, go to the pond, get it pond side, turn it back on, do your pond side checks, and throw it in the water without having to open the boat up again. So it's a great system, and the boat looks tremendous on and under the water. It's about time we showed you what that looks like. So, performance of the Virginia. She is not going to set any water speed records, but it does have a very, very scale speed. And as you can see in this video, actually produces a very scale bow wake as well, which is really cool to see. With the ASDS on the back, it presents a really interesting silhouette and is a very unmistakably American submarine when it's patrolling on the surface. Now, like most modern submarines, the turning radius of this boat is somewhat challenging because you've only got one rudder in the water and it's located in front of the propeller. So unless you're moving fairly quickly, the rudders don't have a lot of authority. So As a result, you're going to see larger turning radiuses for these modern boats, and especially with Virginia for a couple of reasons. If we take a look at the back here, this is basically a gigantic arrow. It's very, very long and very thin. In addition to the stabilizers and rudders, you've also got these little dihedrals that are sticking out. And these are acting like fletching on an arrow to keep the boat moving in a straight line. So you're fighting against the inherent stability of these rear control surfaces and stabilizers, which makes it a little bit more challenging for the boat to turn as well. All that said, once the boat is under the water, you're basically increasing your turning moment a lot because your upper rudder gets into the water and it affects a much better rate of yaw. The huge forward dive planes on this boat provide excellent depth keeping. The forward planes provide depth control. The stern planes control pitch control. You can override those stern planes and do a crash dive or an emergency surface, but for the most part, they operate completely autonomously and keep the boat level at all times. Very, very easy to drive and one-handed operation at periscope depth. It's a beautiful boat on and under the water. Well, there you go, everyone. That's an overview of this 1/72nd scale U.S. Virginia-class Block 3 attack submarine. As I mentioned, you can get these 3D files via my website. You can also get the full kit version of the vertical cut version, Otto's original version, from my website, or the 3D files for the horizontal cut version as well. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe. It helps us out here at the Dry Docks a lot. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. I would love to hear from you. With that, we are going to let you go. You have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you next time.